So the second section here is really about setting things up, and I would recommend for this project to use Visual Studio Code as your code editor, and then we're going to use what's called the Jupyter extension, which basically allows you to run different blocks of code and then see the outputs as you're going through the project. So I put the links here where you guys can install these two. Once you have these installed, I'd recommend going on this link here to download the data for this project. So if you click on the link in the description, it should take you to a page that looks like this. You're then required to make an account and sign in. Here I'm already signed in. I would then recommend reading a little bit more about the data. Some of it is explained in this video and in the article, but I would also recommend reading it from here. Then scroll down and then look at original data.zip, install that, and then extract this data to a relevant folder. So for this project, we just used the train.csv file in the original data.zip folder. And we don't use the test.csv because sadly that doesn't include the true labels. So for clarity, what I do is I rename the train.csv file to blood spectroscopy LDL.csv. The next step is making a virtual environment, and you can think of this as a special toolbox where you just keep only the tools that you use for this project so it doesn't get mixed up with other tools. Often you can install libraries that cause conflicts with each other, so it's important to make your own environment, install all the libraries in there, and that toolbox is separated from any other toolbox that you use for other projects. Before installing your virtual environment, I'd recommend making a project folder, and here I've called it End-to-End Blood Spectroscopy Data Science Project. So we go into here, we can see a few subfolders. So you won't have this virtual environment yet, but we have the data folder where I have extracted the train.csv file from that original data.zip, moved it here and renamed it to blood spectroscopy LDL. Also some images that are used in our Jupyter notebook. And lastly, the Jupyter notebook file that has our code. Once you open Visual Studio Code, go into File, Open Folder, and then select that project folder. So here we can see all those subfolders that I showed you earlier are now in Visual Studio Code. So I'm just going to scroll down through this notebook. A lot of the information here is also in the article. So first we make our virtual environment using this code here. So Python -m virtual environment, and then we give it a name. Here I've called it deep learning environment. So what you want to do is copy this code and put it into your terminal and run it. You then activate the virtual environment. So using deep learning environment or whatever you named it, /scripts /activate. And if you're on Mac OS or Linux, you can use the following code. You can then do pip install and install all the relevant libraries used in this project, which are explained later on. You then want to change your kernel to the deep learning environment.